Hello everyone, welcome to MSFTWebcast. In this video, we are going to see the steps to migrate Active Directory from Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019. Remember, this is a test environment created in VirtualBox so you can have an idea about the migration steps. In our test lab, we have Windows Server 2012 R2 forest named mylab.local. And WS2K12R2-DC is primary domain controller for the domain mylab.local with all 5 FSMO roles. This DC is also configured as a global catalog server. Let's verify that. First of all, I'm going to open command prompt, and for that I'm going to right click on start button. Let's select command prompt admin, and here I'm going to type command netdom query FSMO. Let's press enter key. As you can see, Schema Master, Domain Naming Master, PDC, RID, and Infrastructure Master, all 5 FSMO roles are currently assigned to our domain controller WS2K12R2-DC.mylab.local. I'm going to close this. Let's open Active Directory Users and Computer Snapping. Let's click on Domain Controllers, and here you can see this DC is also configured as a global catalog server. We can also verify the same thing from Active Directory sites and services. Let's expand sites. Let's expand default first site name. Let's expand servers. And here you can see the GC is also there, but let's click on that server. Right click on it, select properties, and here you can see DC type is global catalog. If you expand it and if you click on NTDS settings, right click on it and go for the property, here you can see it is configured as a global catalog server. Now the next thing which we are going to verify is the forest and domain functional level. For that, I'm going to click on mylab.local domain, right click over there and go for the properties. Here you can see domain functional level is set to Windows Server 2012 R2. Forest functional level is set to Windows Server 2012 R2 as well. This is the maximum possible functional levels available in Windows Server 2012 R2 Active Directory. So this is the existing environment we have. And if we go back to our server manager, here you can see ADDS and DNS service is there. That means DNS Server is also configured on this server as well. We want to migrate this Windows Server 2012 R2 Active Directory to Windows Server 2019. And for that, we need to perform only 5 simple steps. In the first step, we will prepare our existing Active Directory forest to support Windows Server 2019 as a domain controller in our existing domain. Then after, we will promote Windows Server 2019 as an additional domain controller for our mylab.local domain. Once we do that, in the next step, we will check replication between both domain controllers, means Windows Server 2012 R2 and Windows Server 2019. Once replication completed successfully, then after we will transfer FSMO roles to Windows Server 2019. That means we will promote Windows Server 2019 additional domain controller as a root domain controller after transferring FSMO roles. And then in the last step, we are going to remove Active Directory domain services from Windows Server 2012 R2. That step is optional one. See, generally I didn't recommend it to instantly remove Active Directory from Windows Server 2012 R2. You have to wait for certain time interval. Once everything working smoothly with Windows Server 2019, then and after then you have to remove Active Directory services from Windows Server 2012 R2 as well. So let's go ahead. And first of all, we are going to prepare existing Active Directory forest to support Windows Server 2019 as a domain controller. In short, we need to use command adprep.exe to upgrade schema versions in Windows Server 2012 R2 Active Directory forest. Let's check that. Let's open registry editor. Let's expand local machine, expand system, expand current control set, expand services, and find NTDS. Expand NTDS and click on parameters. You can see schema version is 69. If you want to include Windows Server 2019 domain controller into your existing domain environment, that time in your forest schema version should be at 88. In Windows Server 2012, that version will be 69. So we need to upgrade this Active Directory schema version. let's close this, and I'm going to attach the ISO image of Windows Server 2019. Let's open File Explorer because those files are in the ISO image. Okay, it is D drive. Let's right click and select open. Double click on support folder, and here you can see Adprep folder is there. And under Adprep folder, you will find command adprep.exe. And here all those schema files are there. Here you can see it is maximum available to schema 88.ldf. So we need to upgrade Active Directory schema using command adprep.exe. Let's close this command. Again, I'm going to open command prompt, right click on start button and select command prompt admin. Change your directory to D drive, cd, support, adprep and press enter key. Now here we have a command adprep. Let's take a help as well. You can see plenty of commands are there, but we need to run command adprep/forestprep. And if we run that command, it is enough to upgrade everything, but still we will run command for domain preparation, and that is domain prep. And then we will run command gbprep for group policy preparation. Let's clear the screen. First of all, I'm going to run command adprep.exe/forestprep. Press enter key. It is giving us one warning about Adprep. Before running Adprep command, all Windows Active Directory domain controllers in your forest must be running on at least Windows Server 2003 or later version. And you are going to upgrade Active Directory schema in your forest named malware.local using Schema Master, which is currently Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. And this operation is a one way. That means you are not able to reverse it. To continue, you need to type C, and then after you need to press enter key. If you want to cancel it, simply close the command prompt. Let's type C and press enter key. It is telling us that current schema version is 69, which need to upgrade to schema version 88. As you can see, the command has completed successfully. Now we need to run two more command, which is adprep.exe/domain prep. Then we are receiving message that Adprep successfully updated the domain-wide information. And then the next one is adprep.exe/domainprep/gpprep. Then no group policy object updates needed, or GPU information has already up to date. So then we have prepared our existing Active Directory forest to support Windows Server 2019 as a domain controller. Let's open registry editor again. And as you can see here, schema version is on 88. One more thing is there, which is a system schema version, and it is on 69. Now why? Because we are still on Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller, and that's why that version will remain 69. So now we have successfully completed our step number 1, which is preparing existing Active Directory forest for Server 2019 domain controller. In the next step, we are going to promote our Server 2019 as an additional domain controller. Let's move to our Windows Server 2019 computer. This is the computer which we have. As you can see, operating system version is Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. Now, right now you can see Ethernet adapter is there, which is set to obtain IP address automatically from DSIP server. We want to assign static IP address. But before, let's check the IP configuration of our Windows Server 2012 R2. I'm going to open command prompt again. Let's type ipconfig/all command and press enter key. Here you can see our IP address is 192.168.5.5, and that is our DNS server as well. So we need to set IP address according to this network range. So for that, I'm going to click on this link. It will open Network Connections Console. Select your Ethernet adapter. Go for the properties. I don't want to use Internet Protocol version 6. That's why I'm going to clear this checkbox. Let's select IP version 4. Click on properties and select use the following IP address. 192.168.5.8. gateway will be 192.168.5.1 and the DNS server address is 192.168.5.5, which is the IP address of our Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. Close this. Now first of all, I'm going to check network connectivity. Let's ping to our domain controller. As you can see, we are receiving reply from the IP address 192.168.5.5. That means we have a network connectivity with our 2012 R2 domain controller. I am also going to ping to my domain name to verify DNS. As you can see, we are receiving name to IP address. That means our DNS server is also running, and we can also check the same thing using nslookup command, whether our DNS responding or not. So here you can see it is responding. If we type mylab.local here, it will gives us the IP address of that domain controller, and which is 192.168.5.5. That means now we can promote this Windows Server 2019 as a domain controller. Let's close this. And now I'm going to click on Manage. Select Add Roles and Features. Click on Next. Here we need to select role base or feature base installation. Click on Next. We have only one server in our server pool, and that is the local server. Select it. Click on Next. Now here we need to select Active Directory Domain Services. Select it. Click on Add Features. Click on Next. Next again. Next again. And click on Install. Okay, as you can see, Active Directory Domain Services has been installed successfully. Now it's time to promote this server to a domain controller. To do that, I'm going to click on this link, promote this server to a domain controller. In case if you close this console, then still you can open that wizard by clicking on this yellow exclamation icon. And here you need to select promote this server to a domain controller link. That will start Active Directory Domain Services configuration wizard. Here we need to select the first one, add a domain controller to an existing domain. If the server is part of your existing Active Directory, that time there is no need to specify the domain and credential. But the server is a part of workgroup, that's why we need to specify the domain. Now first of all, I'm going to set the credential. For that, I'm going to click on Change button. Here it is asking us to provide the credential, which will be an administrator at mylab.local and the password as well. Let's click on OK. Now as you can see, domain has been selected automatically. The reason is pretty simple one, because in our forest we have only one domain, and that is mylab.local. If you have multiple domain, that time you can click on Select button, and here list will be there whatever domains you have in your forest. As you can see, here we have only one domain, that's why mylab.local is there. From this console, you can select your domain and then you can click on OK button. Fine. Let's click on Next. We also want to install DNS Server role on this server as well. So that's why that box is selected. And we also want to configure this server as a global catalog server. That's why that checkbox is there. See, in one Active Directory site, at least you should have one global catalog server. So right now we have a global catalog server in Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller, but we are migrating. That's why from beginning I am selecting global catalog. A site is there, that is the default first site name. Let's specify the DSRM password, which will be helpful during directory service restored mode. Let's click on Next. Here, as you can see, we are receiving one warning about DNS delegation. We can simply click on this close button and we can continue. Here, I'm going to select not any domain controller. We have only one domain controller in our domain, and that is WS2K12 R2-DC. So we want to replicate from that domain controller. Click on Next. We are not going to change the path of Active Directory database, log files, and sysvol. In future videos, we'll definitely see how we can reallocate Active Directory database, log files path. As of now, we are going with the default one. Let's click on Next. If you are happy with your selection, that time you can click on Next. If you want to change anything, then you can click on Previous button and change the options whichever you want to change. Let's click on Next. As you can see, we are seeing message that all checks has been cleared successfully. You can start installation by clicking on install button. And here we have one more message that it is telling us if you click on install, the server will automatically reboot at the end of this promotion operation. Let's click on install. After restart, let's again log into our newly promoted Windows Server 2019 domain controller. Okay, let's click on local server. And now you can see here instead of a group, we have a domain, and that is mylab.local. Let's verify that we have successfully promoted this Server 2019 as a domain controller by clicking on Tools and opening Active Directory Uses and Computer Snapping. Here you can see Active Directory Uses and Computer Snapping is connected to DC ws2k19-dc.mylab.local. If we expand mylab.local and if you click on domain controllers container, here you can see under default first site name we have two domain controllers, and which are ws2k12r2-dc and ws2k19-dc. That means we have successfully promoted this Windows Server 2019 as an additional domain controller for mylab.local domain. One more thing that we want to check is about the NTDS settings in registry. Expand local machine, expand system, expand current control set, expand services, and find NTDS. Expand NTDS, click on parameters, and here we go. Here we have schema version, which will be 88 definitely, but here you can see system schema version. As you can see, it is on 88 because we are on Windows Server 2019 domain controller. In our 2012 R2 domain controller, that number was 69. Let's close this. We also want to open DNS Management Console as well. Let's click on DNS. Expand for lookup zone. Here we can see we have two Active Directory integrated primary DNS zone which are up and running. Fine. So that means we have completed our step number 2 successfully. Now it's time to check replication between both domain controllers. For that, first of all, I'm going to open Network Connection Console. Here I'm going to select adapter. Let's right click on it and select properties. Remember, currently I'm on the Windows Server 2019 domain controller. Select Internet Protocol version 4, click on properties, and here instead of 192.168.5.5, now we have also installed DNS Server on this server as well. So that's why I'm going to change the preferred DNS Server address to 5.8 instead of 5.5. And in alternate DNS address 192.168.5.5, that is the IP address of our Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. Let's click on OK, close and close. I'm going to do the same thing on our Windows Server 2012 R2 domain as well. Let's unlock it. Let's open ncpa.cpl. Go for the properties. Select Internet Protocol version 4. And here I'm going to add 192.168.5.8. Click on OK. Click on close and click on close. Now one thing which you need to verify is that your domain controller must be able to ping through name to other domain controller. Let's check it. Ping ws2k19-dc.mylab.local. You can see our domain controller is able to ping using FQDN of our domain controller, and it is also receiving the IP address as well. I'm going to do the same thing on our Windows Server 2019 domain controller as well. Let's open command prompt. Let's ping ws2k12r2-dc.mylab.local. As you can see, we are getting replay from 192.168.5.5. That means both domain controllers are able to resolve FQDN to IP. And this is the first thing which we need for successful replication. Fine. Now I'm going to close this. Let's open Active Directory Sites and Services console. Let's expand sites. Expand default first site name. Expand servers. And here I'm going to expand our local server, which is ws2k19-dc. Expand entity as settings. Let's right click on it. All task and check replication topology. First thing which we are going to do is check replication topology. Why? Because we want to force our knowledge consistency checker service to check for the replication topology. Let's click on that link. Click on OK button, right click and select refresh. Now here you can see we have one automatically generated link which is generated by KCC from server ws2k12r2-dc. That means this link is coming from our Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller to Windows Server 2019 domain controller. Let's check whether this link is able to replicate data or not. For that, I'm going to right click on it and select replicate now. As you can see, we are receiving message that Active Directory domain service has replicated the connection, and we are going to do the same thing from 2012 R2 as well. Let's open Active Directory Sites and Services console. Now I'm going to right click on Entity as Settings, check Replication Topology. Click on OK and click on Refresh. Let's right click on Automatically Generated Link and select Replicate now. As you can see, Active Directory is able to replicate data between both domain controllers. Say, why this replication is happening very quickly? The reason is pretty simple one. My both domain controllers are in VirtualBox and they are connected with 1 Gbps speed. And the second thing, that both domain controllers are in the same site. So that's the reason that why replication has completed very quickly. In production environment, definitely this is going to take lots of times if your domain controllers are in a different sites, and if they are connected with slow WAN link, that time definitely it will take time. So now, as you can see, replication has been completed successfully. We can also verify the replication in DNS as well. So let's open DNS Management Console, expand forward lookup zone, and let's click on _msdcs.mylab.local DNS zone. And here you can see startup authority number is there, which is 21. We want to check the same thing on our Windows Server 2019 as well. Let's click on refresh button. Here the same number is there. That means both domain controllers are replicating DNS data successfully as well. We're going to do the same thing for mylab.local zone. Let's click on refresh, and here it is 38. Let's check the same thing on Windows Server 2019. Let's click on mylab.local DNS zone, and it is 37. That means it is not up to date. Let's click on refresh. Fine. So it is 37, which is 38 on our 2012 R2. So definitely a certain data is still pending that needed to replicate. We are forcing the replication. Okay, let's refresh. Let's go back on our Windows Server 2019 domain controller and let's check the DNS. Okay, it is still not up to date. Let me restart the DNS service. Let's expand forward lookup zones. Let's click on mylab.local, and here still we have 37. So yeah, this data will replicate automatically, but definitely it is going to take some time to replicate DNS data as well. For that, we can do one thing, and that is the simple thing that we need to wait and watch for it. But I'm not going to do that. Let's force our Active Directory to replicate data instantly. Okay, let's check again. And still it is 37. Fine, we'll wait for it. Let's transfer FSMO roles to newly promoted Windows Server 2019 additional domain controller because we want to promote that ADC as a domain controller. So I'm on Windows Server 2019 domain controllers. We are going to minimize the DNS Management Console. Later on, we'll check the same thing. Let's right click on Start button and select Windows PowerShell. Let me change the font type and layout as well. Click on OK. Let's clear the screen. You can also transfer FSMO roles from Active Directory users and computer console. Let's do that. Right click on mylab.local, and here we have operation masters. From this console, you can transfer 3 FSMO roles, which are RID, PDC, and infrastructure. For that, as you can see, current operation master is ws2k12 r2-dc.mylab.local. And if you want to transfer this role to this domain controller, now simply you need to click on the change button. Click on yes. And as you can see, we are receiving message that the operation master role was successfully transferred. Now it is currently displaying current operation master is ws2k19-dc.mylab.local. Let's do the same for PDC and infrastructure. Let's close it. So you can also transfer last 2 FSMO roles using graphical user interface as well. You can use domain.msc console to do that, but I also want to cover the CUI method as well to transfer FSMO roles. And for that, I'm going to run command ntdsutil. Press enter key. Here you can type help command to get more help about the commands inside the ntds utility. We want to manage roles, that's why we need to type roles. Here you can see FSMO maintenance mode, because right now we are in a maintenance mode of Active Directory FSMO roles. Let's type help command again. We simply need to use command connections to connect to a specific Active Directory domain service instance. Done. Now here we need to run command connect to server. If you don't know the command, you can run command help to get more information about it. Connect to server. Short and simple, let me tell you, if you don't know which DC is currently holding FSMO role, but you want to transfer to one specific domain controller, that time you need to connect to that domain controller here. In our lab, current FSMO master is 2012 R2 domain controller, but we want to transfer those FSMO roles to Windows Server 2019 DC. So we need to connect to Windows Server 2019 domain controller, not to Windows Server 2012 R2. Let's type ws 2k19-DC. As you can see, it is connected with ws 2k19-DC using credential of locally logon user, which is domain admin. Now we need to type command quit to return to prior menu. Okay, let's take help. Here we have a command to transfer these roles, but we have successfully transferred infrastructure, PDC, and RID. Now I'm going to transfer naming master. Let's select it, paste here, and press enter key. Are you sure you want to transfer this FSMO role? Click on yes. Yes, we want. Fine. I'm going to do the same for schema master. Press enter. Click on yes. Done. Let's again open PowerShell. And here I'm going to run command netdom query FSMO. As you can see, now all 5 roles has been successfully transferred to our Windows Server 2019 domain controller. And already this DC is configured as a global catalog server. So now this additional domain controller has been successfully promoted as a root domain controller for mylab.local domain. Let's close this, and at this console I'm going to type quit again, and exit. Done. So we have successfully completed step number 4. One thing which we left was DNS. Let's verify it is up to date or not. Here you can see now this version is on 50. Let's check on our Windows Server 2012 R2 as well. Let's select My Library Local and click on refresh. Now here you can see both are on 50. And let's do the same for our first zone, which is 30. And here it is also 30. That means DNS has been replicated successfully as well. So now let's move to the next step, which is demote Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller from your Active Directory forest. See, it is totally optional one. If you don't want to do this right now, you can wait for some time interval. And if you think now your Windows Server 2019 domain controller is working smoothly without any problem, then and after then you have to do this. But we are in a test environment. That's why we want to remove Active Directory domain services from our Server 2012 R2 right now. So let's go to Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. First of all, let's select NTDS settings in Active Directory sites and services because I want to remove this server as a global catalog server first. Simply you need to clear this checkbox, and then after this server will no longer acting as a global catalog server. If you click on servers here and if you click on refresh, that time you can see now it is normal domain controller. We can check the same thing on our Active Directory users and computer snapping as well. If you click on domain controllers container and if you click on refresh, here you can see Server 2012 R2 is now a normal domain controller. Fine. Let's close everything. One thing which I want to show you before we remove Active Directory domain services, right now you can see this snapping is connected with 2012 R2. Let's close this. Let's click on manage, select remove roles and features, click on next. I'm going to select the local server, which is Windows Server 2012 R2. Click on next. We're going to remove Active Directory domain services. Click on remove feature as well because you also want to remove the management tools as well. The validation process found problems on your server which you want to remove features. The selected features cannot be removed from the selected server. Click OK to select different features. Active Directory domain controller needs to be demoted before ADS roles can be removed. So first we need to do this. Let's click on demote this domain controller. And then and after then you can uninstall those binaries as well. Okay, already we have logged in as a domain administrator. That's why we don't need to change the credential. Let's click on next. Here you can see the message is there. The domain controller currently hosts the following roles as well, and that is DNS Server role. The role hosted by this DC are required for Active Directory domain services functionality. If you proceed, some Active Directory domain services operations may be impacted. Let's select proceed with the removal. Click on next. And now it is asking us to set up a password for your local administrator account. Once you do it, let's click on next. Let's click on demote to do it. After restart, let's again log into our Windows Server 2012 R2 member server. Now this server is no longer acting as a domain controller. Let's open Server Manager console. Here one yellow exclamation mark is there. And it is asking us to promote the server to a domain controller. No, we don't want to do that. I'm going to click on manage, select remove roles and features, click on next, select our Windows Server 2012 R2 server, click on next. And here now I'm going to select this checkbox, Active Directory domain services, and let's clear it. Click on remove feature as well. And now it is possible to clear the checkbox. And we also want to remove DNS server as well. So I'm going to clear this checkbox as well. Click on remove features as well. Hit next, next again, and click on remove. Okay, features removal has been completed successfully. You need to restart your server. Let's click on close. Close again. And let's restart it. Let's go back to Windows Server 2019 domain controller. Let's click on domain controllers container and click on refresh. Now there is only one domain controller, and that is ws2k19-dc. If you click on computers container, here you can see account will be there of our Windows Server 2012 R2 server. Let's open DNS Management Console. Let's expand for a lookup zone and let's click on MyLab.local. Now here you can see we have only one name server, and that is ws2k19-dc.mylab.local. So all those records in DNS has been successfully removed, which was for Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. Fine. Let's close it. Let's minimize it. And let's go back to our Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controller. Okay, let's use controller to delete to sign in. So now if you want to use this Windows Server 2012 R2 as a member server in your Active Directory, you can use it because we have successfully migrated from Windows Server 2012 R2 Active Directory to Windows Server 2019. If you want to remove this Windows Server 2012 R2 from your Active Directory domain, that time it is also possible. Let's open System and click on Change Settings. From this console, you can remove this server from your MyLab.local domain. You can join this server in a workgroup as well. According to Microsoft official documentation, you can use in-place upgrade options if you want to upgrade this Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019. In future videos, we'll definitely see, because I have read one official documentation and that Microsoft has mentioned that it is a very easy procedure to upgrade your Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019 using in-place upgrade options. So right now, I'm not going to remove this Windows Server 2000 from my Active Directory domain. If you want to remove it, you can remove from this console. The last thing which we are going to do on our Windows Server 2019 domain controller is, let's click on MyLab.local, right click here and select Raise Domain Functional Level. In Windows Server 2019 Active Directory Forest, the maximum domain and forest functional level is Windows Server 2016. At the time of this video recording, still we don't have domain functional level or forest functional level for Windows Server 2019. So let's select the highest available domain functional level, click on Raise and click on OK. Okay, again, let's open domain.msc console, means Active Directory Domains and Trust Snapping. Right click here, select Raise Forest Functional Level, select Windows Server 2016. Actually, you don't have to select it because you have only one option. Click on Raise and click on OK. Done. If we right click again over there and if we try to raise Forest Functional Level, now we don't have that options because currently it is running on highest forest functional level, which is Windows Server 2016. Let's close this. Let's go back to our Active Directory users and computer snapping. Click on refresh button, right click on MyLab.local and go for the properties. Now, as you can see, domain functional level is Windows Server 2016 and forest functional level is Windows Server 2016. So after seeing all those steps, I can simply say that these are the very straightforward steps to migrate Active Directory from Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019. This is the identical process which we have seen in migration of Windows Server 2008 R2 to Windows Server 2019. I don't think any step was different from that procedure. But everything was in a test environment, in a virtual environment, in production environment. Generally, before migration, you need to take system state backup of your domain controllers, as well as you have to take the backup of your data, whatever data you have on your domain controllers. So if during migration, if something went wrong, that time you have backup so you can restore it. So this is the way how we can migrate Active Directory from Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019. That concludes our video demonstration. If you have any questions and suggestions, feel free to post in a comment section. Thank you all for watching this video.